and building information modeling, and we're supposed to have 5 speakers. We are missing 2 for now, but we will start as Mark is in a hurry. So please, Mark, the floor is yours. The screen is yours. You can start with your presentation now.
Okay, I'll do the presentation.
You can share the presentation. That would be great.
Sorry, let's just go in.
Human interactions.
Yeah.
Conference on Smart Built Environment. My name is Mark Swallow, and I'm a lecturer in Construction Project Management at Sheffield Hallam University and a PhD student at Leeds Beckett University under the supervision of Dr. Zulu and Dr. Shigdeer. I would like to share some data that I collected as part of my ongoing PhD research.
I don't think this shares the screen sharing.
Of implementing immersive sensory technology.
Sorry, is it not sharing?
I can't see the screen. I can hear it, but I can't see it.
Anita, can you hear?
I can hear, but I don't see any slides.
Let me try again. Can you see the slides?
Yeah, now it's
Yes.
fine.
Okay, let's start again.
Thank you.
Now we can't hear
There
you.
there is no sound. You need to enable the sound before running it. Please.
I did enable it last time. My apologies for that.
International Conference on Smart Built Environment.
Yeah, now we see and we hear.
I'm a lecturer in Construction Project Management at Sheffield Hallam University and a PhD student at Leeds Beckett University under the supervision of Dr. Zulu and Dr. Shigdeer. I would like to share some data that I collected as part of my ongoing PhD research, investigating the drivers and challenges of implementing immersive sensory technology within construction site safety. Immersive sensory technology, such as virtual reality, offers an interactive, risk-free environment which could be the ideal solution for training and to communicate safety risks with a project team. Despite the availability of immersive technology, there is still a slow uptake within the construction sector. For example, the MBS annual stats show only 27% of those surveyed are using it. The reasons behind this slow uptake of immersive technology within the construction industry has led to various research papers that have investigated the drivers and challenges. However, this research is limited from a UK perspective and limited with any focus on safety applications. The main question being, if there are so many reported benefits, why is this not more widespread? And why is this not more widespread within safety application? This study intends to investigate these questions and aims to take an industry-based view of the current drivers and challenges of implementing immersive sensory technology specifically for safety purposes. The data collected in this study also aims to inform interview questions in further data collection in my ongoing PhD research. In order to collect data for this study, I conducted online focus groups with active industry professionals in varied organisations to get a fair reflection of the industry as a whole. Using selective sampling, 21 participants were asked to join the study. These participants can be seen in the table to the right. The participants were divided into 4 focus groups with a range of roles within project management, digital construction and commercial roles. The focus groups were recorded and the data analysed through deductive thematic analysis. As part of the initial questions, The participants were asked how often they used immersive sensory technology specifically for safety purposes. As the chart to the right shows, even amongst industry experts, the technology was either rarely or never used in most cases. No participants in the study said they always use it. Only one participant said they often do, 10 said it was rare, and the remaining 10 said it was never used for safety purposes. The focus group discussions were transcribed and analysed using NVivo 12 software to find codes within the text, which were then collected into key themes. As the diagram shows, there were organisational drivers, industry drivers within the drivers themes, and within the challenges themes, there were organisational challenges, individual challenges, industry-wide challenges, technological challenges, and project-based challenges. The research paper contains many quotations taken from the participants. For the purpose of the limited time in this presentation, these slides will include a few quotations from participants under the key themes. For example, participants spoke of the legal drivers for health and safety, including the CDM regulations and compliance, and the practical benefits this technology can bring. Others spoke of the construction organisations themselves pushing the boundaries with the use of new innovative technology without the need for mandatory requirements or client demand. It's to improve the company's safety performance and reduce accidents, as opposed to mandatory requirements. This said, many participants also agreed that without the demand, construction companies may not adopt this technology. Although there were drivers and benefits identified in this study, throughout the focus groups, the challenges seemed to dominate the discussions. Many participants linking this to the time, cost, and resources required to build and manage these immersive environments. Others discussed a need for digital skills within the construction industry and the need for leadership within organisations to first see a purpose and to integrate this within safety systems. This would need investment. Much of the discussion linked back to the demand from clients and the cost on projects, as well as the reluctance from the site team to use the equipment. This reluctance being for many not seeing the need to change existing safety processes and from the personal comfort of being immersed in a virtual environment. This study aimed to take an industry-based view of the current drivers and challenges of the implementation of immersive sensory technology, specifically for safety purposes. This study found that amongst those in the focus groups, immersive technology was rarely implemented on projects, and even rarer specifically for safety purposes. The key drivers of adopting this technology for safety mainly linked to the legal requirements, and some suggested that organisations are pushing the boundaries by trying new technology in the attempt to improve safety on projects without the need for mandatory requirements. This said, the wider challenges of implementation within organisations and onto projects dominated the discussions. This mainly linked to a lack of demand from clients, the cost to implement, a lack of digital skills, and a lack of investment and leadership. In addition, the practical challenges of using the technology on site, the need to change existing processes, and the potential for a reluctance from the site team to use it. This study recommends that further empirical evidence of the application of immersive technology and its impact on safety outcomes should be explored. Also, a further investigation into the digital skills needed to design and use VR safety applications in order for training providers and educational institutions to target these skills and increase awareness. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and I will be happy to respond to any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Do you have time for one more quick question? Because you said that you have to leave because of your student. Can we take one question for you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is there any question for Mark? Okay, I'll ask one. No, is there any question? No.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, it's Chris Gorse here.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Anita.
Hi.
Thank you, Mark. I think that was a really useful presentation. I think it raises an important point, but I actually do feel that at some levels, some of the virtual technologies are probably not fit for purpose in some of the ways that you've identified from the feedback in use through their sort of a use on site and almost restrictions in using them on site. And I just wondered whether you thought there was a role that they could play in almost a blended approach to the almost on-site training actually on the tools in place with the virtual headsets or other technologies that wouldn't take up too much time but would really enhance the experience. I wonder whether technology could actually move on and sort of push the boundaries in terms of what you are likely to experience and almost or measure stress through bodies in wearable technologies or things like that, just to really bring home the benefits of some of these technologies.
Yeah, sure. I totally agree. I think that the technology definitely has a place. On sites, I think it's the on-site limitations that are restricting the use of the headsets as such. But I do think the technology is moving on, which might provide further applications on site. The feedback we're getting from the case study trials is quite positive, actually. So the operations team are getting really good experience using the headsets for planning purposes and toolbox talk purposes, which is quite useful, actually. So I do think there's a place for it on site, but I also think you are right in a more blended approach or different applications.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Mark, for your interesting presentation. Health issues are always important to us, but lately I see all the time that people are complaining that still digital transformation didn't allow that issue to be implemented in building information modeling or other digital technologies. So thank you, Mark. Good luck with your students.
Thank you.
So now I will need help from Sam, because I think that we are missing two speakers, Kudirat and Mohammed. Mohammed, I see that he is now with us.
Yes, I
Okay.
couldn't earlier, something wrong with the link, but I got some help from my student and she let me in, so thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mohammed, because Kudirat Aynla is not with us. That's a paper 49, and he's supposed to be second speaker. Could you please start with your presentation now? I would ask Sam to share presentation with us because you are third speaker, supposed to be third speaker, but now you switch to second place. Is that all right with you?
Yes, and I think it will be good news to everyone because it is less than 6 minutes, so hopefully everything.
We will have plenty of time for discussions.
Well, I'm ready. Thank you.
Ready. Sam, could you please share the presentation with us?
Okay. So good evening, everybody. Or good afternoon.
Good evening. Hi.
Wherever you are in the world, and I'm just be presenting this paper on BIM in facilities management and how COVID widened the gap between academia and practice based on a case study from Dubai. So as a quick intro for all this, we would like to see how BIM was defined. And as you can see on the screen, BIM enabled facilities management to remain in its infancy and has not yet reached its full potential, as mentioned by Chan 2014, and reality can confirm this. So it is still in the infancy stage. Over the past 2 decades, researchers across the globe provided a range of contributions to the practice, emphasizing the efficacy of employing BIM for FM. However, there is clear lag behind by miles, as mentioned by Salam and Salama. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on the construction and real estate sectors, with millions of jobs globally and regionally lost. Awareness and knowledge have been highlighted as one of the biggest setbacks for the implementation of BIM in FM. Apparently, after 2 decades of research output on application of BIM in the design and construction phases, FM is still significantly lagging. And as according to Dawood 2021, there is also evidence of a disconnect due to both overwhelming nature of BIM, the acronyms, competing standards and technology, in that people are unsure what to implement and when, with a lack of objective focus on what the goals and advantages at a project level might be. So this is the main gap that we were looking at. And our main objectives is to investigate level of awareness, study the current practice in FM in Dubai, and to assess to what extent COVID has affected the adoption of BIM in FM. Very quickly about our methodology, we had a survey of 300, out of which 143 responded, which is not bad at all. We used a questionnaire of 11 factors, all identified from the literature. We used factor analysis to reduce the data, and we used 15 interviews. So we planned for 15 interviews, however, we only conducted 10. So the results, as you can see, of the factor analysis on the right-hand side of the screen, as you can see, the challenges, the top of the list is the cost, then followed by information and interaction, and followed by other aspects. Lack of awareness comes, and resistance of change comes as relatively high in the. So when we are looking at the interpretation of this, we realize that 61 out of 72 from the 143 respondents selected score 5, which means that they could not decide. This is an indication of lack of awareness. Perceived benefits from shifting to BIM, in an FM is a change. Resistance to change is one of the factors. Some experts did not hear about CAFM, and that's actually from the interviews. Some did not hear about computer-aided facilities management. Others just heard about BIM. This is really serious when these are the so-called experts. Also explains, the interviews explained and verified the findings of the survey. To look at what we found from the interviews, experts believe higher education is not delivering the goods. Cost is the issue, not COVID, and COVID just affected the costs. So our conclusions are: the resistance to change reflected the concern about cost, as well as the impact of the market dynamics and economics of the sector. However, the lack of awareness was still high on the list. This further explains and verifies what other researchers have referred to, like in the literature review we've shared with you. The education sector has to address this gap by instilling BIM training in construction management and facilities management courses. This will help dampening other impeding factors, such as the cost of training and capacity building and the time required for both. Indeed, cost is a key challenge, and the COVID-19 pandemic has hit this sector hard, thus slowing down any initiatives that would require initial investments. These findings of this study should help academics who are designing construction management and facilities management courses by improving the quality of their graduates, thus enhancing their employability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohammed. But now I think that we have some technical issues.
I think it was something in the last second or so of the video, yeah. But I was meant to say thank you, nothing more. So I think...
Thank you, Mohammed. That was very interesting. What do you think? What is the future of facilities management and building information modeling? Because we heard today that many talks about building information modeling, that everything started in 1950s and but still people do not do the right implementation. And I have my own experience in building information modeling and facilities management. We are getting nowhere. So what do you think from your perspective?
Well, from my perspective, and this is actually from this part of the world, I'm talking about the Gulf, the Dubai, and now in Bahrain, and I found exactly the same picture. Two things. They are mixing facilities management as we teach it, as in academia, with property management or real estate. So we are still having the realtor, as we call it in Canada, the realtor, and the property management to some extent would be, by sending a plumber or an electrician or something like that, if and when needed. But the proper facilities management as taught, as in academia, is still lagging in this part of the world by miles. This is the first thing. The other thing is BIM in general, it needs an integrated approach among the supply chain. I had interviews with multinationals, and they say, yes, we have the expertise. We run BIM in our projects. But when we came, for example, to Bahrain and the similar, to some extent, some projects in Dubai, we found that the supply chain is not ready. So we have to communicate with them with something that they can read, they can understand. So if we start producing all our documents and using BIM when they are not using BIM, then we are speaking to ourselves. So this is also another issue, but particularly in FM, very few, and I mean it, in Dubai and almost non-existing in Bahrain are using computer-aided facilities, CAFM. And BIM, I haven't come across anyone using BIM in facilities management. Although actually it makes more sense that if they are using computer-aided facilities, it would be BIM for the integration between the two phases of the life cycle.
Excellent point, because we have issue here also not for the new buildings, but for buildings that already existing, because they are not in a CAD format at all. So we need to transform everything from, blueprint to digital, kind of, I don't know how to say, but everything needs to be, transferred from a blueprint to the digital visualization.
Absolutely, and this is actually the biggest part of the problem. But I was trying to make life easier for everyone, looking at only even the new stock of buildings, and this is not helping, because at least we should help by not widening the gap, by trying to make the new stock of building better, and then start to help the existing stock of buildings to catch up. But if the new stock of building that is entering the market or entering existence, they are still lagging behind, then it's actually things are getting worse. Of course, BIM needs initial investment. Of course, BIM needs capacity. And I found that through my interviews and through actually, looking at some of the key courses in facilities management, that BIM is not part of the teaching in facilities management at undergraduate or postgraduate level. So again, that was one of the messages through this paper, that perhaps we need to look at ourselves as well as academics. Are we really delivering the goods or not?
Thank you, Mohammed. That was a nice message to all of us. We will follow your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you, and stay with us because the next speakers are going to be interesting too, and I hope that we will have much more questions for all of us.
Is there a chance I can ask a question? I raised my hand earlier.
Of course, I didn't see you. Sorry, Sam.
Hello everyone. Anita and Mohammed, thank you for the discussion. Hi, Anita. Mohammed, thank you for the raising timely issues in your paper and presentation. And if the case, as other publications also emphasizing the perception of cost is an issue of adopting and implementing BIM. So how can we convince the industry? If that is the perception, how about the reality? And how can we convince the practitioners and the sector, facility management or the construction sector, with the benefits of BIM, and if that is going to make any future savings and for the whole life costing? So that there is a dilemma here. If they perceive cost is an issue, it will be a problem to convince them. So if you can enlighten that point, please.
Well, I think there are two approaches to this, and I will use the analogy of Microsoft. Microsoft actually meant to release Windows that, you know, you can get it, and even in different countries, even if it is not the original copy, they let it go because they wanted everyone to use Windows, so that if you go to your organization, you're familiar with Windows, so you will ask your organization to buy Windows for you. And I think here we need to have our graduates familiar with BIM and the benefits of BIM and how that BIM will make life easier for them as facilities managers. This is a starting point. If this is the case, then hopefully they will be the driving force. But in general, as you may agree with me, any cost or investment has to be justified by returns. So we need to make a case for the industry how BIM will mean better returns, will mean higher efficiency. This can be a better life cycle for the building. This can be higher rents if they are renting, like most of the buildings in Dubai, or higher returns for the owners, just like, for example, other countries, Canada, where I come from. You know, it is very important. Actually, when I go to buy a building, the first thing I ask about is who is the property management here.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Mohammed has a really interesting observation. I think that we will stay in touch. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
And the third speaker today is our moderator. Sam, are you ready to share your presentation?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Just a minute. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Sam Zulu. I'm a reader in Quantity and Construction Management at Leeds Beckett University. As you can see, the title of my paper is Barriers to Digital Leadership Enactment in the Construction Industry. I'm sure you agree with me that digitization is driving rapid transformation in many sectors. However, evidence shows that the pace of digital transformation in the construction industry is particularly slow. There have been calls for the industry to increase its pace of digital transformation. While there are many factors that can influence organizations to accelerate their digital transformation, leaders and managers can play a critical role in influencing the pace of this transformation. It is critical, therefore, that leaders in the construction industry should be seen to be at the forefront of their organization's initiatives to accelerate digital transformation. The influence of leadership in driving innovation in general is well documented. However, there are limited studies dedicated to digital leadership in the construction industry. There have been many studies that have considered drivers and barriers to digital innovation in the construction industry, including technical and non-technical factors. While the emphasis sometimes is on the need to understand the technology being adopted, evidence suggests that digital transformation can be less about the technology and more about the transformation process. For example, in some studies, it is indicated that about 75% of barriers to digital transformation are non-technical factors. Ken and others argue that digital transformation is less about technological aspects than it is about managing the transition, including effective leadership, acquisition of appropriate skills, buy-in from managers, leaders, and employees, and integrating the organization's systems with the new digital technologies. We noted the limited research dedicated to digital leadership within the construction industry. We therefore argue that considering the slow pace of digital transformation, leadership has contributed to the slow pace of digital innovation in the construction industry. The following is therefore the primary research question. What are the barriers to digital leadership enactment in the construction industry? That is, what is stopping leaders in the construction industry from enacting their digital leadership role to accelerate digital transformation? The aim of the study is therefore to explore the factors that can inhibit or hinder leaders from driving digital transformation in their organizations. This study took a qualitative approach and collected data using a questionnaire survey. The qualitative questionnaire included open-ended questions where respondents were required to respond or write in free text or data. The approach is suitable for exploring people's perceptions and experiences, practices, and understanding about the research topic, and was therefore suitable for our study as it is an area that has received less attention. We received 38 completed questionnaires from construction industry professionals representing various roles. The data was analyzed using an inductive thematic analysis approach, and barriers to digital leadership enactment were grouped into 5 themes as presented in the table. These included leadership characteristics, management and organization barriers, technological factors, resource constraints, and risk attitudes and perceptions. As you can see, under each of the themes, there were a number of factors that were identified. So, for example, under leadership characteristics, participants observed that some of the leaders exhibited old school habits and therefore were resistant to change. Others looked at the lack of leadership buy-in to digital transformation. There were, in some cases, lack of motivation and drive, or generally ineffective leadership. Under organization barriers, there were issues around lack of a strategic focus within the organization, or where they were adopting technologies, but there were questions about the change management process. In some cases, we also observed the inadequate communication and engagement within the organizations. We also looked at technological barriers. So, for example, technological know-how that some of the leaders they lacked the know-how of how the technology is operated, and in some cases, organizations did not have an appropriate IT infrastructure, or leaders lacked the appreciation of the value of the different technologies. Then we also looked at resource constraints. Under resource constraints, we have barriers in terms of budgetary constraints. They did not have the resources, or lack of investment capability. This was particularly identified when comparing, for example, SMEs and larger organizations, that larger organizations had the ability to invest in a particular technology, which may not necessarily be the case when it comes to small organizations. Yeah. There was also an issue to do with risk attitudes. So, for example, there were leaders who were willing to take risks, but of course, is the issue about uncertainty in terms of the outcomes for the adoption of the technology, but also uncertainty in terms of the return on investment. In conclusion, we can say that the construction industry is characteristically slow at adopting technologies. The role of business leaders should be considered as critical to driving digital transformation in construction industry organizations. While there have been many studies on digital leadership in other fields, there's a lack of research focus on this in the construction industry. This study was therefore timely as it considered digital leadership in the construction industry. Our findings suggest that barriers to digital leadership enactment can be grouped under the 5 themes: leadership characteristics, management and organizational issues, technological factors, resource constraints, and risk perceptions. This has both practice and research implications. At the practice level, organizations can use this as a framework to design strategies to enhance their ability to accelerate digital transformation in their organizations. While at a research perspective, the findings can be used as a platform for future research. Thank you very much for listening, and I welcome questions.
Thank you, Sam. Some questions, please. Anyone? Okay, there is one person, but I cannot see the name. It's SN42.
Hi, yeah, I'm Sundar. Actually, thank you for a good presentation. It was very interesting. My question is that one of the hindrances was lack of technical know-how. Now, was it because of the attitude of the leader, or was it because of the lack of skill set that they were unable to upgrade?
Yes, so we were looking at leaders, and this was sort of the perception of their employees. And so, you know, they were looking at that they really lacked the technical skills, and therefore did not really appreciate, you know, the use of digital technologies. For example, that some of them were sort of very much old school type, and therefore they favored the use of, you know, their traditional ways of working and not necessarily technologies. So I think that was the context for that particular item here.
So the role of leadership arises again, and most likely you all read the book of Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Black Swan. And he said in that book, when the average person did something important for the society. So I think that great leadership means a lot in digital transformation too. Yeah. So is there any question to Sam? Any other questions? Taha?
Yes, please, Anita, thank you. Thank you, Sam, for also raising these interesting issues, especially if we compare them with previous speeches and talks. This is touching upon the issues raised by Ghassan on leadership for the sector. But if we compare it also with the results from Muhammad Salama, here, the Muhammad Salama, I think the top factor there, and that's for BIM only, adoption and implementation, is about cost. So I can't see the cost issue here at the top of your findings, but I can see leadership issues, which is in line with the Ghassan views. So if you can give us a bit of comparative kind of with the literature also you have come across and these previous talks, a little bit of comparative views here, please, Sam. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yeah, so I think it was interesting, you know, listening to Professor Ghassan earlier on, where he was looking at leadership in the construction industry and how that, you know, leaders actually, they are the drivers of things. So if you look at Dubai, for example, how it has changed, it's because of, you know, the strategic leadership roles in there. I think it's the same with, you know, literature, for example, on innovation, on change management processes, we need leaders to drive initiatives, leaders to set the vision for the organization. And so that was the focus for the study in terms of, what are leaders doing in driving innovation in their organization. So in a way, leadership enactment in there, they're taking their role to drive innovation. So we're looking at some of the inhibiting factors in there. And so the idea for this was, that they'll have sort of open-ended responses in there, open-ended questions, and they were giving us responses. And so we analyzed the data, and using thematic analysis, we grouped them into about 5 or so categories. Of course, leadership characteristics, their leadership styles, and and the leader's lack of motivation. What seems to be some of those things in as an inhibiting factor. Some of them sort of very much old school. But an issue that is related, I think, to Mohammed's survey in there in relation to cost. We found it in terms of, not just in terms of the cost itself, in terms of how much it's going to cost to in terms of the investment, but we looked at it as a resource constraint, sort of much broader. So there was an aspect of budgetary constraint, that they did not have the monies. So especially small organizations, for example, budgetary constraint was a key factor in there, which in a way can be translated into the cost of implementing technologies. But also in terms of the resource constraints, we also looked at lack of investment capability. While the cost may not necessarily be inhibiting, but really they do not have the resources. They could appreciate the potential return on investment, so which was not a problem, but actually they did not have the resources per se. They thought it's okay to invest, but they did not have the resources. So we combined that into one theme, which was resource category, which includes issues around cost as well.
Thank you. This is really good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. We can take one more questions because one speaker is missing, so we have enough time for more discussion.
Can I ask a question, please? I raised my hand.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Mohammed.
Actually, thank you very much. Thanks, Chair. Actually, it is more of a comment, and first, I like very much the presentation about digital transformation. I think it is really interesting. But I just want to share a comment following Dr. Taha Al-Hajj's comment. Actually, the lack of awareness that came out as one of the most significant findings of our research ties very well with the digital transformation and digital leader, because the absence of awareness, it calls for the need to have this digital transformation and to have digital leaders who are aware of the tools and aware of, besides also the resource constraints, ties very well with our message about our graduates. So I really like the presentation. I like it in 2 ways, for the value of what you have been delivering, and because it ties very well with what we are trying to deliver through our paper. So thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Sam, see, everybody is happy with your presentation and your research, so it's good for networking.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll get in touch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mohammed.
Thank you, Sam. And as far as I can see, Kudirat didn't show up because I see the participants that I cannot see the name of the presenter with paper 49. No?
May I suggest if we can just play the presentation? Because she's been trying to join in and out, I'm trying to look for her everywhere. Maybe we can just play a presentation.
Okay, then we will go with next presentation, and if somebody arrives, or we can at least, release taped presentations so that people can see what's going on, or we can have a long discussion, whatever you want. But now we will start with Ivona. Ivona is here with me actually in my office, University of Zagreb. She is my doctoral student, and Ivona is going to present our paper together. So Sam, please share our presentation.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ivona, and I will present a paper which I wrote with my mentor, Anita Ceric. We are both working at the Faculty of Civil Engineering in Zagreb, Croatia. And today's topic is about building energy efficiency retrofits in Croatia, specifically about communication challenges between the main participants. As you are aware, buildings consume 40% of European and 1/3 of global energy. And because of that, Europe is, of course, working hard to implement energy efficiency retrofits, shortened EERs, to the building stock in member countries. Unfortunately, these retrofits are often failing to satisfy occupants' expectations for resulting energy efficiency. And why is that? We examined existing literature and revealed that communication problems between participants are actually the main reasons. So our main objectives were to map the key stakeholders in EERs, to analyze the relationships between them, and develop a framework for future research on this subject. We selected Croatia as one of the EU member countries for the analysis because of its unique legislative framework for operation and management of multi-dwelling residential buildings. So we are talking about residential buildings which contain multiple separate housing units, each with its own owner. Owners are altogether responsible for the maintenance of common areas such as staircases, the facade, and others. But a big issue here is that retrofitting requires collective decision-making among owners with very different social and economic status. And of course, it requires a considerable investment, which is often not possible for all the owners. To make this kind of projects even possible, of course, other stakeholders need to be included. Owners finance the retrofit, but they also apply for co-financing from EU funds. So public bodies such as Environmental Protection and Energy Efficiency Fund and the Ministry are also included in the process. Also, according to the Croatian law, owners must authorize an owner representative, here shortened OR, which is one of them. And he or she needs to represent them and protect their interests in every operation and management activity, including EERs. Also, by the law, they must entrust the operation and management of their building to the property management firm, here shortened PM, which is also responsible for EERs. A PM is a holder of owner's claim for co-financing and also manages all financial and organizational issues in these projects. Other involved stakeholders include a designer and a contractor who is responsible for executing the retrofit. To map the key stakeholders in EERs, we conducted a social network analysis in Gephi software. We used two different network measures to explore each stakeholder's role. First, we used Degree, which is the measure for the number of stakeholders connected to a particular stakeholder. And the other measure is Centrality, which is a rough indicator describing the social power and influence of a stakeholder. Due to the limitations of this presentation, we are going to show only the main results of the analysis, but you can see this in more detail in our paper. In Gephi, we can visually represent the data, which are actually statistically analyzed. And here in this slide, you can see the results for two selected scenarios. First, for a building with 5 owners on the left, and second, for a building with 10 owners on the right. Here, all stakeholders are represented as nodes, and formal interactions between them are shown as ties or edges. In this slide, you can immediately spot two different clusters, red and green. Red cluster represents a group of building owners and their representative. They are, of course, clients, but the communication here is relatively enclosed, and external information exchange only goes through their representative. Similarly, the green cluster is organized around a property manager, and other stakeholders such as designer, contractor, and public bodies communicate with him, but not directly with clients. And it is obvious that the relationship between the owner representative and property manager is the only tie enabling information flow between different stakeholder groups. So they are recognized as boundary spanners and gatekeepers of information in the network, and they can potentially provide problems by making decisions that may not be visible to owners, which all can lead to a principal agent problem with information asymmetry between the property manager and owners. Here is this key relationship that we are talking about. So our next step was to develop a framework for principal agent model for EERs in Croatia. Here in this figure, you can see that the owners on the left as principals hire a representative as their agent. On the right is a property management firm, which can employ a representative to manage a specific building case. So these two representatives are agents, and they are in non-contractual relationship. A key principal agent issue arises with self-interest or because stakeholders are not always willing to share all the information. And to conclude this presentation, this study provides insight into the social network of energy efficiency retrofits in Croatia. Our results especially emphasize the importance and centrality of two key participants, the owner representative and the property manager. We also propose a framework for principal agent model, which is a useful pointer for future research in applying principal agent theory in EER's projects, especially for information asymmetry between participants and strategies for its minimization. In this slide, you can see all the references used in this presentation. And thank you very much for your attention. Please, any questions?
Thank you, Ivona. I think it's time for questions. We have 3 minutes left, so we can take 1 or 2 questions for Ivona, who is sitting next to me. So please, anyone? Maybe there is some technical issues. Oh, Taha.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for these interesting points, taking the case of Croatia. I'm interested in the social network analysis you have done and the underlining relationships between the different stakeholders. Do you think that will be applicable? Because here you are looking at retrofit specifically, but do you think that will also could be generalized in other contractual relationships other than just the retrofit? And if you can just tell us a little bit more about the social network analysis and the formation of it you've done in your research. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, of course, some of it can be applied to other projects in maintenance management in Croatia. Some of the stakeholders may be different. For example, an energy fund may be isn't in every project, but these key stakeholders, such as owner representative and property management firm, are included in every maintenance project in Croatia. Regarding multi-dwelling buildings, of course, we are talking about multi-dwelling buildings here. And regarding the social network analysis, here in this study, we only analyzed undirected ties and formal communication networks between the participants. But of course, this analysis would be better if we could actually analyze actual interactions in some of the projects. But this is for maybe an idea for future research.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Talha. We only consider formal relationships, and there are many of informal relationships because those people who are property managers in Croatia, property firm managers, you know, they are fighting on the market to get more and more buildings. So they try to, you know, even make some presents for multi-dwelling representatives in case that they become property management manager of their building. So it's a really complicated and unique things that we have here because of legislation that we have to have one property manager firm to do business for us. It is not that all tenants can make a firm. It's that we need to make a contract with a property manager firm from the market. So,
amazing additional points. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So is there any question, more question for Ivona? Mohammed?
Yes, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. Actually, I mean, throughout your presentation, I couldn't resist thinking about the model that I have in my own property in Toronto, in Canada. We have a different system. I want your comments on how to compare this system to what you are suggesting here, because we have our board that we elect, that they represent the owners, and this board, actually, they are the ones who hire the property manager or the property management firm, and they are the ones who are responsible in any budgetary expenses or any budgetary issues. And the system seems to be very interesting and very efficient, because at the end of every year they have to present their budget, and it has to be reviewed by like a chartered accountant, and they have to work within the maintenance fees that they collect from the owners. If they ask for more fees, they will be sacked, all of them. So this is really an interesting model that seems to be working quite well in Canada, and I think in some other countries as well. What are your comments? How do you see this compared to what you are suggesting?
Sorry to interrupt. Can you wrap up in 2 minutes, because the workshop for the TG96 in the main lobby is going to start in about 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, we will finish, Mohammed. Just take this question and we are done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll be ready for TG meeting. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you.
To answer this quick, I think that the models are actually very similar, only that we have the one person who is the owner representative, and you have the whole board. And of course, when you have a board, it's of course more efficient, because here we have one person which can act with his self-interest, and some problems can arise.
Yeah, it's more transparent in Toronto, I think, than here. So
Thanks for the answer. Thank you very much. It was very interesting presentation. Thanks for those.
Thank you all. I have to say that it was very interesting session, and I'm very happy to meet you all, even in this virtual reality. So I hope finally, eventually, that we will meet somewhere in person. So many thanks to all once again. Enjoy the conference, and I hope to see you soon somewhere. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, seems it looks like another question there.
Big hug to all of you.
I'm taking my hands down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoy the conference. Bye.